categorical thinking, thanks to Aristotle. But at this point, Plato is just trying to give us the questions. The Apology talks about Apollo, and it's the defense of Socrates. But if we go and we look, and by the way, if you read this, Plato definitely gives us the impression that Socrates should have won totally, because the other individuals look like they just don't know what the heck they're talking about, right? But he's condemned to death. And why did they feel he was corrupting the youth? They thought he really was corrupting the youth. A perfect example of this, if I go, I'll go up. To the Euthyphro. If you had the chance to read the Euthyphro, it would be great if you did, but you don't have to. But you don't have to read anything, actually. These are all just suggestions. Notice this stuff is all out there. You could read more stuff about Plato, more stuff about Socrates than you have time left in the universe. And every day we write more, right? But Euthyphro is another dialogue. I think it explains beautifully why Socrates is in trouble. Euthyphro, it's 3 words. Eu is it's actually the prefix for good. Theo is God, and phronesis is reasoning. Right? Phronesis. Right? So you have good God thinking, or basically Euthyphro, he's a God expert. He understands the gods. So Socrates is in line waiting for trial, and Euthyphro is there, and they begin discussing things. And when Socrates explains that he's going to be on trial for corrupting the youth, for not being pious, it occurs to him, Euthyphro, can you teach me how to be pious? You're a priest. You can teach. I'm an old man. I'm hard for me to learn anything new. I don't think so, actually. I learn new stuff every day, and I'm older. I forget. How old was he? 70? When they 70. So I beat him. I'm there. But in any case, you're a priest. You can teach me how to be pious. So while I'm in the trial, and they ask me, I can say, I'm taking lessons with Euthyphro. I apologize for not being very pious, but what I'll do is I'll study with a priest who will teach me how to be pious, and I'll behave better, so you don't have to kill me, right? Or whatever, right? And Euthyphro says, I'll be glad to teach you. So Socrates says, well, what is piety? And Euthyphro explains, doing what the gods love. A nice answer. Beautiful answer. Right? I think when we get to the next quiz, it's not today's quiz. I got them kind of switched, I guess. But the quiz that I think I'll ask when we come back, by the way, Monday I think is a holiday, right? So our next class after today will be on Wednesday. And I'll ask you the quiz question for that day. Imagine Jesus coming to your door. You answer the door, and you know it's Jesus. And, hypothetically, you know he is God. No doubt about it. And Jesus says to you, sell everything you have, give the money to the poor, and then come follow me. So the quiz question is, do you go with him? Do you argue with him? What do you do? And I was thinking another example of, because does Jesus want you to come and essentially be an ascetic, not owning anything? By the way, there's lots of orders of people, men and women, that have joined these orders, that have taken the vows to try to live the way they think Jesus was trying to inspire people to live, right? So you join these orders, you take a vow of poverty. I'm not going to own anything. My high school teachers and my grammar school teachers were the nuns in the grammar school and the Augustinian monks in high school, right? They did not get money. They were not paid for their teaching. They were allowed, of course, they lived in the convent or the monastery. They had their food. Some people gave them some things, that they weren't completely destitute. My one friend, Father Bonacorsi, had a car that he didn't own, but a family had lent him the car so he could do things with the car, get around and stuff. So there are people that literally try to live this way, right? Fewer today, there's all interesting kinds of things about this, but is Jesus telling you to live this way because that's the best way to live? Or because he personally likes it when you live that way? What Socrates asks Euthyphro is the pious because the gods love it? Or do the gods love the pious remember exactly? I've done this so many years, and now I'm trying to it's the reverse, right? Do the gods love the pious because it's so pious? Or are the pious things pious because the gods love them? Right? But for the Greeks at the time, it's pretty clear that they believed that the gods loved certain things. And if you were going to be pious, you ought to adopt those same kinds of behaviors. You ought to imitate the gods, right? But how many gods did the Greeks have? They had a pantheon, right? All the gods, right?
And they're fighting with each other.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Troy, there are gods on both sides, right? And famous ones, Zeus is not the original one, right? But he's the powerful one at the time, and his wife is Hera, and Hera is, for example, Hera is where we get hours from. She's the goddess of time, and as a result, she's in charge of order, and one of those things is matrimony, right? So she's the goddess of matrimony. What did Zeus like to do most of all?
Be unfaithful.
I mean, and he liked decorating himself as animals and stuff. So for what's her name? Leda. So let's look at some very sanitary images here. I'm not going to ask anybody if they've ever had sex with a swan. I don't get it. I don't know why that's supposed to be so fascinating to artists, but even modern artists apparently try their hand at this. What's it like? What can you imagine? A swan? It's a woman, by the way. It's not anyone else. This is not my fault. Just so you know, right? Zeus apparently is also a bull in another thing, but he becomes a swan, and then he basically rapes Leda and others. They become pregnant usually and have demigods. And so there's like more gods out there. It's very, very interesting family tree, right? But of course, here's the point. Zeus thinks it's fun and good and manly to go out and have lots of affairs with all kinds of others, and Hera is in charge of matrimony. So is this how do I be pious to Zeus without getting Hera upset with me? By the way, I've been married 53 years coming this October, so notice I've been behaving myself. Donna would not have appreciated any sort of philandering at all, right? In any case, Hera's in charge of matrimony. If I'm going to be pious to her, I shouldn't do any of the things that seems like I should be pious to Zeus, right? And this is just one example that the Greeks had. So of course this is a real dilemma for someone who believes in multiple gods, many of whom are in conflict with one another. How can I be pious to all of them? It's impossible, right? And as a result of this question, Euthyphro gets furious, angry with Socrates for asking such a question, and storms off, leaves. I think that's exactly why the people were mad at Socrates. One of the reasons. Because in that particular culture, he was encouraging young people to be critical thinkers in a way that seems not to have occurred before. And by becoming that, they were becoming critical of the ethical beliefs of the time. We, in retrospect, think of Socrates as kind of a hero. But they did not. And you can imagine societies today where that would be exactly the same problem. Questioning authority could get you your head chopped off, your hands cut off, burned at the stake, you name it. There's all kinds of interesting punishments out there still today. Sorry about the pictures there. Should I warn people before I put things up like that? So, Euthyphro. It's considered, by the way, the question that puts paid to the idea that a priest has direct communication with the divine and can then turn around and tell everybody how to behave. In fact, when we think about a contemporary point of view in this regard, there is I'm not getting the book right. Let's go this way instead. So, this is a relatively famous book by Julian Jaynes, only one he wrote, I think. It's The Origin of Consciousness and the Breakdown of a Bicameral Mind. Bicameral, 2 rooms, right? You know that, right? We have the corpus callosum in the middle, and you have the left and the right. The left takes care of the right, and the right takes care of the left. Oddly, right? The corpus callosum is broader or thicker in the female brain than in the male brain. They're actually the same up until 6 weeks in the womb, when suddenly the male brain splits and the corpus callosum shrinks, depending on how much testosterone is in the mother's bloodstream. So there's actually a variety of possibilities, although the normal is for the male, the XY chromosome, have this occur, and the corpus callosum shrinks, and as a result, males have brain damage. So says some people, right? And what it means is that males can tend to compartmentalize more, and that seems to improve their ability to do things like know where they are, kill things, there's all kinds of things that actually turn out to be pretty